What's up, guys? My name is Brendan, and today I want to answer the question, is tricking for kids? You see, I've been thinking about this question a lot recently, and I wanted to make a video discussing all of my thoughts. Fair warning, this is going to be a long video of mostly me talking. If you want something a little bit more exciting or entertaining, please check out my other content. But if you want to listen to me talk in depth about something that's really important to me, keep watching. Because I think the question, is tricking for kids, is a very important one that needs answering. First, I want to give you guys some context. You see, I wouldn't be thinking about this that hard unless I had to make an important decision. And that is my content for kids? You see, YouTube has made all creators make a decision. Is their content for people who are under 13 years of age or over 13 years of age? And I've had to make this decision, and I have just been wrapping my brain around it because it's a weird thing. I create educational tricking content that is designed to be watched by all ages. I love saying things like shit, but I don't include them in my videos so that way kids can consume them. But tricking is a very physically demanding, active, risky, intense sport. That's one of the reasons I love it so much. But I'm not sure if a 11-year-old kid should be trying to work towards a double cork. That's just a lot to put on a child. So I'm going to talk about all of these things. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of context before I got into the weeds. So the short answer is no. Tricking is not for all ages, at least not at a competitive level. If you're going to be investing yourself in the sport, I don't think you should be doing that at the age of 10 or 11. I really think you should be waiting for your body to mature and for your head to get a little bit smarter before you really invest yourself in the sport. And that is because of 5 important reasons. And I'm gonna go through each one in specific detail. Like I said, if you want to be a competitive tricker, I'm not sure if you should do that if you're below 13 years of age. But if you want to be a recreational tricker and just kind of dabble in the sport, I think you can do that at all age, all body types, all physicalities, as long as you're being mindful of the risks you're taking. Because there's a big difference between being in a recreational level sport and a competitive one. And that's what I'm talking about. Should children below 13 years of age be investing their time into being a competitive tricking athlete? And honestly, I think it's no. But I have 5 well thought out reasons why I think that. Our first reason is physicality. I hope you guys don't mind the scene change. I got kicked out of my first lecture hall. But when it comes to should a child learn tricking, one of the big things that I think about is the physicality required, at least to do skills like cork or double cork. It doesn't take a lot of physical strength to do something like a tornado kick. But the second you start scaling up the tricks to things like 540, side swipe, B-twist, cork, those skills require a good amount of physical strength. And often kids, if they are under 13 years of age, before puberty, they just don't have that strength. Their bodies are too weak. That's why I think they really struggle to learn higher level skills. It's one thing if a kid is able to learn the basics and the fundamentals, but if they start scaling up their tricks, they're gonna need a body to support that. And it's hard to find an incredibly buff 11-year-old. So by the physicality alone, I often don't recommend people under 13 years of age invest too much into tricking. It's just really hard, and you have to be really physical. Like, I don't talk about it that often, but I'm pretty jacked. I have like super abs, and my arms are incredibly defined. Guys, when it comes to the sport of tricking, you need to be strong. And unfortunately, kids are not strong. And that is reason number one. The physicality is just too high. Of course, a kid can learn tricking, and there are kids out there who are just ridiculously buff. I just don't think we should put that expectation on the majority of tricking athletes, especially if they are under 13 years of age. Reason number two is the risk. Because tricking is so physical and so demanding, there is a high degree of risk associated with the sport. Honestly, I think tricking is about as risky as a ton of the other high-impact sports, like free running, mixed martial arts, parkour, other things. When it comes to the risk of tricking, it's just so high. I've seen athletes tear joints, ruin their Achilles, maybe break bones, and it all happens far too frequently. If you are under 13 years of age and you break a bone and maybe damage your growth plate, you're not going to be able to go through puberty growing properly. One injury to a kid who is under 13 years of age can follow them for the rest of their athletic progression. That's why I usually recommend very conservative training for young athletes. If a young athlete pushes their body too far and gets injured, it will not only take longer to heal, but it will be far weaker. I don't want weak athletes, and I don't want hurt athletes. Rather, I want the people in tricking to be strong, healthy, and have fun. Because tricking is so risky, I don't think people should be too competitive and put too much pressure on themselves if they are below 13 years of age. Of course, that risk can be mitigated through smart training and very planned progression, but that's not common. That's not what most people do. And because of that, tricking is just a super risky sport, just as risky as mixed martial arts, parkour, free running, or any other high-impact sport. Our third reason is infrastructure. The sport of tricking is incredibly young, and because of that, there's not that much of a foundation for athletes to learn and grow. Now, I am trying to do my part by building the tricking infrastructure by creating educational tricking content. And slowly but surely, the infrastructure around tricking is starting to grow with competitive platforms like Adrenaline and incredibly well-hosted events like at NEO. Those things are extremely important, but they're not there yet. If I want to take a 12-year-old athlete and really push them in tricking, I would want them to have an in-person coach, plenty of support, and maybe even a physical therapist or a mental coach to help them along their journey. And for the majority of athletes, that is not an option. There aren't that many high-level tricking athletes like me who know how to teach the sport. And because of that, often kids will learn by themselves. And I think that is one of the stupidest things you can do. If you are 15 or 16 and you're consuming my content, I'd like to think that you are smart enough to make good progressive planning decisions. But I wouldn't really expect that of an 11-year-old kid. They might just not be there yet. I'd want to be there in person to help them through that journey. And honestly, without a strong infrastructure, I can't be there in person. I can't teach everybody on a personal level, but I think if you are below 13 years of age, you need a personal, in-person tricking coach because of the physicality required for the sport and the high degree of risk. You want to mitigate all of that as much as possible by finding a good infrastructure for your athlete. And unfortunately, there's just not a big infrastructure for the sport of tricking. That said, we're trying, we're growing, and if you are an entrepreneur or a business-minded person, please invest in creating something for the tricking community. Trust me, the more infrastructure, the better it is for both the athletes and the businesses surrounding tricking. The fourth reason is complexity. You see, tricking includes all skills that involve kicking, flipping, and twisting. So to put that into perspective, every skill or trick that is in gymnastics is also in tricking. Every skill that is in wushu, from butterfly kick to butterfly twist to all of their break falls, all of those are also in tricking. Same goes for everything in karate, everything in taekwondo, everything in capoeira is all encapsulated by tricking. Not only that, but tricking is a self-expression sport to a certain degree. So people have to be cognizant and think, what am I doing to express myself? And that's not an easy thing for an 11-year-old to do. Tricking is just so complicated. And often when an athlete is planning their progression, they have to involve skills from many different disciplines and maybe even drills that are obscure or unheard of. And if you want to learn tricking safe and effective, you need someone to guide you through that complexity. That's why I think if you're below 13, you need an in-person instructor because tricking is so complicated. And if you want to learn the sport of tricking and you are a little bit younger, what I would recommend is instead of attacking tricking as a whole, attack one of those disciplines I mentioned earlier. Spend some time focusing on the fundamentals of gymnastics. Maybe spend a year or two training a martial art like wushu, capoeira, or taekwondo, or even invest some time into dance. If you can, instead of attacking tricking as a whole, attack its components, it will be way easier to then take all of those skills and move them into your tricking. This sport is just so complicated. So what I would recommend is learn the parts before you learn the whole. Our fifth reason is maturity. Because tricking is so adult, because of all the things I mentioned earlier, the tricking community is an adult community. The majority of us are probably between the ages of 16 and 24, which means there is a lot of lewd humor. There is maybe even drug use and recreational partying at a lot of tricking events. And that is just not a good place for a 12-year-old. This community is very mature and very adult. So if you're going to include tricking with children, you need to lower that a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit more PG. But that's not the tricking that I like. I like the mature adult tricking. I like going to events and hanging out and partying with all the guys. That is fun to me. And I don't want to lose that by incorporating a ton of children into tricking. Not only that, but I think it might be a little bit dangerous for a young kid to be in a really mature gathering environment with a lot of older guys. Now, if you are a 23-year-old dude in Colorado, there's nothing wrong with smoking some weed or having a drink. But you shouldn't do that around an 11-year-old kid. And that's where things get really complicated at tricking events. And that's why I recommend, if you are below 13, don't travel to a lot of tricking events. Just wait, get a little bit older, so that way you can be a little bit more mature and not approach these events in maybe a less thoughtful manner. You need to be smart if you want to progress in tricking. All of those things I mentioned, like partying at gatherings, are really fun, but those need to be severely balanced. And that's why I think you should be like 18 before you go to a gathering. These places are mature adult events with very few children. Now, keep in mind, every gathering is different, and there are some gatherings like experience tricking that do a great job of incorporating kids and providing a family-friendly environment. Unfortunately, that's just not most events. Or fortunately, because I like the adult events. But that's just my perspective. Honestly, I think if any kid wants to learn tricking, they need to have a mature mindset. Not only do they need to be thinking about the longevity of their progression, but also, is their body healthy and are they doing the right things if they want to succeed? You need to be mature, thoughtful, and progressive if you want to be good at tricking. And honestly, I just don't see that in a lot of kids below 13 years of age. But that doesn't mean there aren't awesome kids. Like Aiden Kennedy. Aiden has been tricking since well before 13, and his skills show that. But Aiden is also one of the most mature, thoughtful, and kind people I have ever met. If you are going to be young and in the sport of tricking, you need to be mature, like Aiden and the other kids who have come before him. There's nothing wrong with being a young athlete, you just need to be far more considerate about how you're growing. Thank you guys so much for watching and for listening to my rant. If you liked this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and more than anything, please do me a favor, leave me your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm not sure how I feel about this yet. My thoughts are definitely not complete, and I just kind of wanted to throw a lot out there and really kind of express myself on this topic. I think it's a really important thing for all athletes to consider, and especially tricking instructors. But again, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and please have a lovely day.